Hi, everyone, and welcome to the recording of the convening workshop that presents the Office of Equity's plans for the Equity and Agency Reporting. We first did this at the 2024 convening, and there was some technical issues. We wanted to make a video of it also. This workshop will allow us to collaborate with our agency partners to ensure that equity is integrated into how every agency serves our communities. This session is primarily for agency representatives, but it is open to members of the public who want to learn about Office of Equity or learn about how agencies will work together for accountability in the community. The focus is on measuring agency effectiveness and reducing disparities. What is a disparity? Disparities refer to situations where community members do not have equal access to resources or services. This is often due to barriers that affect some but not others. We want to ensure equitable distribution of funding and services so that everyone has opportunities to create a Washington for all. To achieve this, we will use the agency's strategic action plan to incorporate equity into our services. And this video and beyond will guide you on how to do this. Introductions. Hello, I'm Alice J. Lind. My pronouns are they, them, and I am one of the statewide equity accountability analysts. I have experience working in the DSHS and Department of Health. I've been an advocate out of a couple of different hospitals in the UW system, and I've been involved in administrative hearings, which provide insight into program integrity in action. Today's agenda includes 1, an overview of the foundations of accountability. What are we doing here and why does it matter? The steps of accountability, which is analyze, strategize, and galvanize. We'll discuss completing your analysis, using that analysis to develop a new strategy, and finally, bringing people along to implement those changes together. We will also discuss our collaborative efforts to build on this foundation for what's next. Let's begin with our shared purpose. Every program, policy, law, and taxpayer dollar, is aimed at protecting and improving the lives of those we serve. We want to help agencies invest where the needs are the greatest to advance equity for all in Washington. This principle is even reflected in the Washington State Constitution, which begins with the notion that all political power is inherent in the people and that governments derive their powers from the consent of the governed. So our whole role is literally to protect the people of Washington State, to help them thrive and to give them the resources they need. I emphasize this purpose because no matter your role in state government, whether you represent the largest organization or you're one of the few individuals working to protect a specific species of raspberry, our collective mission is to protect the people of Washington State. However, our policies, processes, and practices may inadvertently create barriers for individuals based on factors like geography, identity, community, ability, veteran status, immigrant status, or any other identity that limits their access to this shared purpose. If our current systems create such barriers, it indicates a need for change. While I know some folks are holding off on retiring, we've all come into this system of laws long after it was made. This is a system we have inherited with a long history of exclusionary laws and practices that benefit a few at the expense of the many. We must work toward continuous improvement, addressing these historical inequalities step by step. In my role now, I'm part of the Washington State Office of Equity. Founded in April 2020, our office promotes equitable access to opportunities and resources that reduce disparities and improve outcomes statewide. You can find more information about us in RCW 4306D. Our goal is to enact system change throughout Washington state government and to improve access to power, resources, and opportunities for everyone. That's not someone's, that's not a quota of someone's, that is uplifting everyone. We aspire to lead the state toward becoming a truly transformed government that embeds equity and justice into every action. We want a future where equity is simply the way the government operates. So, as I mentioned, we do use our RCW to further detail how the Office of Equity works to connect the agencies to impact. But put simply, we want to tell the story as an accountability analyst about how every agency is investing in the community and how that can lead to transformed communities. These principles guide our discussions on agency accountability. Here's a brief introduction to our team in innovation and performance. This is where I'm currently working, and one way to think about us is we're a group of data enthusiasts who believe that accountability comes from understanding our communities and the issues they face, and by analyzing the data in front of us. So now let's talk about accountability in action. There's always room for growth and accountability. If you remember one thing from this whole video, let it be that we define accountability as truth and reconciliation, which is an endless cycle. We can reiterate throughout this presentation that the first step in achieving equity in any process improvement is reflection. So the first thing you need to do is acknowledge that you are part of a system that predates you, and some things work great and some things don't, and you need to look clearly at it and understand the consequences of it. I want to discuss the concept of targeted universalism. Consider the idea of equality, which suggests that everyone should receive the same thing. For instance, if everyone were given a bicycle, identical model, color, and size, that seems fair. Everybody's getting the same thing. While this distribution approach appears equal, it can lead to a superficial sense of fairness. Everybody gets something, so no one should complain. Are we choosy beggars now? No. People have diverse needs, strengths, weaknesses, and barriers. If everybody loves bicycles and wants to ride, they have different ways to engage with a bicycle, or they have really long legs. We can't or shouldn't take everything that we have, take it equally apart, and distribute it. To achieve equity, we must observe our communities, understand their specific needs, and adapt our solutions accordingly. That is our aim as an office. This involves basic observation. Go and see. Plan your approach. Analyze what is in front of you. It seems very obvious, but as many of you have experienced, sometimes data simply doesn't exist in places where folks don't want to look. So this is where I challenge you. What do you need to know? What's important? Who needs to be at the table? And who is missing from the table? Identify your agency's work and how it intersects with the determinants of equity. These definitions are available on our website, which contains more information about our initiatives. The determinants of equity refer to the social, economic, geographic, political, and physical conditions that shape the needs of individuals, families, and communities in Washington. They also represent the statewide goals for equity and how we currently assess progress toward being a fair and just society. This framework allows us to evaluate the status of communities, populations, or the state as a whole. We can then determine if our work as state employees is genuinely reaching the places that matter to people. The Office of Equity can guide agencies in assessing and setting their own goals. We offer a consultation process to assist you with this, because you are the expert on your agency, just as the community is an expert on their lived experience. The Office of Equity serves as a collective and a collaborative resource so that agencies can develop strategies that suit their specific programs. Here are the key determinants of equity. Just briefly, you can find all of them on the website to get more information. But we have parks and recreation, early childhood development, health and human services, community and public safety, vibrant neighborhoods, which is defined as do you have the access to resources, culture, and opportunities based on where you live, economic justice, which includes addressing wage disparities and ensuring that 40 hours of work means someone can be housed, fed, and able to have a family if they want to. Healthy environments, quality education, and we need to consider the roles of state and local government, as well as various systems such as food systems, housing systems, that's one that needs a lot of work, transportation, and mobility. Can people get around Washington state effectively, whether or not they have their own car? Further, we have to focus on job opportunities and job training, ensuring digital equity, which can be having devices to get online and then also be able to use the space once you get there, addressing climate issues, and pursuing justice and resilience at all levels of our society. This also means that we examine the justice system and laws. That's an overview, but you can find all of these on our website in detail. That's the determinants of equity and an overview of analysis. So, have you conducted your research? Have you gathered the relevant data and observations? Have you noticed what data is missing, or what isn't being tabulated, or where no one is looking? After assessing the situation and understanding the population data, forecasts, and baselines, it's time to have some skilled analysts go through it with you and identify some trends. Once the full analysis is complete, you can strategize based on the goals you've established for your agency. For example, if you are a small agency focused on ensuring timely completion of contracts, that you would look at the ways that you impact state government and the community through that primary objective. Review the data. Which contracts have been completed on time? Which still need processing? Were there any issues with executing contracts? Who are the people that are allowed in for those contracts and who don't even know about it? What other factors could improve this process? With this information at hand, it's time to create the future you want to see. We must identify and address disparities evident in the data, as these reflect broader inequities in our community. That means centering the community needs in our work by sharing power and practicing collective decision-making. This leads us back to the significant concept of truth and reconciliation. You've uncovered the truth by analyzing the data and observing the realities of the communities you serve. Transparency, which means letting it be known about these realities, is critical. It isn't always pretty. Sometimes in a place that runs on politics and political capital, it can get really messy. But in order to change the system, we all need to know what reality we're in. Collective decision-making is in transparency. Go to the community, find and call out the elements of the system that is causing harm. Demonstrating humility and a willingness to collaborate for a better future fosters trust and leads to collective decision-making. So, what is collective decision-making, and how do you practice it? To break it down, collective implies that everyone affected is at the table, including those who may not be directly impacted, but can contribute to the decision-making process, as well as those with the resources and authority to help make it happen. It's crucial that everyone has a voice, particularly in discussions about how taxpayer money is being invested to benefit them. One initial step is to leverage your pro-equity and anti-racism teams, especially if they represent impacted communities. Simply put, harness your pair teams so they can reflect the experiences of those communities. You are in a position where you can see more about what's going on with the community and you can bring them in. It's crucial that we build trust within the communities we serve and mean it. If you lack trust of the community, figure out why. You need to examine your systems and find a solution with them. Can your agency act on what you already know because the community has already told you? Gathering information and then failing to address it in policy is another way to lose trust. It's important to demonstrate that you value their input by making meaningful changes. Transparency about past mistakes and inviting the community to share their experiences with your agency also needs to come with a commitment to rectify the wrongs that they've faced. So we're going to then look at preparing to galvanize. There are engaged advocates in your community right now, representing all sorts of groups who would be more than happy to know that you want to have a conversation with them, as long as it leads to something meaningful. Don't waste their time. And as we arrive to galvanize, which is my favorite part, that's when we invite people in to work alongside us to make a better future. It reminds me that I'm not alone. There are always others who share my passion and excitement and are ready to use their skills to make Washington State better. How do you get ready to galvanize? So here's some systemic change focus to dismantle the oppressive systems and promoting equity in all aspects of society. The Office of Equity has begun gathering information about how each agency impacts the determinants of equity, and you've probably gotten a survey or two about that. Our expectation for the upcoming year is that for our reporting cycle, starting now, will include discussions about how each agency's programs intersect with the determinants of equity. We want to make a place that different agencies that intersect with the same determinants can talk to each other and work out best practices and build relationships so that we're all working more efficiently with one another instead of in parallel. This will allow us to establish goals and performance measures focused on reducing disparities. Here's my checklist covering strategies to complete before involving people. Again, making sure that we're not wasting their time. It's on the previous slide though. Resources and funding. If you're rallying people to action, ensure that they have the necessary resources to achieve your goal. It takes more than manpower. Create a communication plan. Do people know what you're doing and why? Do they want it to happen? Are there concerns that no one has addressed? Have you had the hard conversations? Make sure your communication plan is in place. Set a timeline. When communicating with people, inform them of any changes. The communication plan will help them understand when the project will start, when things might get challenging, and when they'll be completed. Identify your team and assign responsibilities. Ensure that everyone knows their roles so their tasks are clearly delegated. The term galvanize was chosen because it represents the process which different metals and heat come together to create something new. The metals that create steel separately are not as strong as what happens when you put them together. Galvanizing changes the situation at a foundational level. It also embodies the idea that while one can achieve here and there, going fast alone can lead to confusion and uncertainty because you're missing your other parts. When you bring us together, we're ready. The thing we know as civic servants is that an unimplemented plan is just a very expensive piece of paper. And while we're taking the time to argue and create beautiful visualizations, there are people that need to be helped, and they aren't getting the help they need while we wait. After establishing everything and doing the work, yay, something has been accomplished. We are starting to implement our strategy, and it is beginning to make shape and create change in the community. But what data is available to tell us how we're doing? Monitoring and measuring involves finding performance measures that connect the agency's actions to the community's well-being. These can be quantitative measures, which means they're countable and easy to organize in a pivot table, but they can also be qualitative measures, which are more narrative and personal. For example, you can distribute a survey and gather responses that reveal trends about a community's interactions in a more specific way. When we assess our impact, we can use both qualitative and quantitative measures to understand our progress. While qualitative measures can be challenging to represent in charts, they're so vital to our work. They help us determine if communities are better off. One book I reference in results-based accountability is called Trying Hard is Not Good Enough. When I first saw it, I was like, dang, calling me out. But it's true. Trying hard is great. It's commendable, reflects a strong work ethic. However, if you truly want to see the real impact in the community, we have to go out and measure how it is for them. Performance measurements should connect your agency's actions to community well-being. For instance, consider a summer lunch program designed to help food insecure school-age children. We can start with a baseline. For example, we can gather data about food assistance issuances and usage for families with school-age children during the school year, and then compare it to that during the summer when there isn't school lunches happening because there's no school. Are families spending more money or running out of food assistance more quickly in the summertime? Understanding this will give us insight on how helpful our summer lunch program is for those households. There are many ways to evaluate for it. For example, just knowing the numbers. How many lunches were given out per week? If we find that for each lunch provided, we can say that a household saved $50 a month, that's one way to measure a positive impact. What if we only went to one park and put all the lunches for the state in that one, making it very inaccessible for those who are far away? That ends up being a how well did we do it issue. We're not handing out all these lunches, they're just sitting there. But the ones that do go out, are they nutritious? Were they accessible to different dietary needs? And were they easy to get? We can measure that and find ways that are working very well and also where we need to improve. We also need to consider if there's easy access, did working parents face issues receiving it? And then there's the qualitative, the impact. Is anyone better off? Did the health data for school children trend up? Were we able to send out a survey where we asked the parents directly, did this help? Was the food good? Was it easy to get? And we can take all of that and continuously improve all of our processes. We have gone through that entire cycle. We observed, we made changes based on what we could improve, implemented those changes, and measured our success. We're all set. Equity has been restored. However, as I mentioned earlier, accountability is an ongoing process. The next step involves evaluating how the last project performed and looking for ways to improve for the next year. This is why we have an ongoing annual reporting cycle, to allow room for that kind of experimentation. We can try various strategies, talk with our cohort that hits the same determinant of equity, and see what works. Sometimes things won't go as planned, and that's okay. We can learn from every mistake and misstep just as we can celebrate every success. We appreciate the opportunity to do this with you. In the pursuit of equity, we reflect on our actions, what was done, how often, and did it work to the people that it matters to. The information collected during the monitoring phase is now ready to be applied. This brings us back to assembling your team, evaluating your intentions, assessing whether the objectives were met, and exploring what to do next time. Finally, you can go through the analysis process again, empowered by new information, finding new sources of information, and continuing forward. Regardless of whether you succeeded, improved, or fell short, it's essential to consider ways to make your efforts better next time. Engage in the analysis process with the new information. This will provide evidence of improvements and identify any issues, ultimately creating that comprehensive report that you need to send to us. We also want to assess your impact by demonstrating positive changes and outcomes. One of my favorite things is to brag about agencies, and I love that you're going to give me lots of opportunities to read about the bright spots of what you're doing. Even if the results aren't perfect at the end of each cycle, seeing an improvement, such as a positive trajectory or a flattening of a curve, indicates progress. This is a major step toward fostering thriving communities in Washington state. Consider if there are any unintended impacts, unintended consequences, benefits that we didn't even try to do that we can do more of. What aspects of your strategy may need adjustment to enhance positive outcomes and reduce negative ones? Are there additional initiatives now that we've built a foundation? Can you be more ambitious, or is there something we need to scale back? Reflecting on these questions will guide you toward improvement. You may be familiar with the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or Plan, Do, Check, Adjust from the Lean framework. The check phase follows along with this because this is process improvement. The check phase allows you to narrate the story conveyed by the data and its interconnected outcomes. You share your findings with your community organizations and partners that have contributed to your progress, and it helps build those relationships and promote shared power. Evaluate whether the goals, data, and performance measures are effectively reducing disparities. Are the communities you serve seeing fewer disparities? Are more individuals thriving? Is access to resources and opportunity equitable across Washington state? Seek input from the community regarding recommendations for adjusting your strategy. This feedback will inform updates to your strategic action plan and goal measures, preparing you for the upcoming year. The continuous cycle of results-based accountability involves reflecting, checking, correcting, and acting. Remember, we want to avoid producing beautiful but unused policy documents. And we must refrain from making changes based solely on our own assumptions about what people need. Taking that measured approach, going slow to go fast, will ensure community involvement throughout the process. Next, we will discuss the expectations for the reporting periods in the PAIR program, clarifying what agencies need to do and how we will collaborate going forward. Specifically, we will provide a timeline and outline for what to expect for 2025 and beyond. For the current reporting period, which spans 18 months from July 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024, our focus is on engaging everyone and ensuring a shared understanding of the work. Your team should be fully established, and it should include your agency experts, your executives, your equity officers, your frontline partners, and tribal governments. Pretty much anybody who has a perspective they can contribute to building a better Washington for all. Reflect on who's at the table on your pair team and identify who might be missing. A complete pair team is an expectation for this cycle, and it should be rooted in relational partnerships and include external community members and tribes affected by your programs, policies, procedures, and regulations. Proactively invite customers and community members to participate in your pair team, but you also have to ensure that they are compensated for their contributions. For more information on community compensation, please visit our website. We value the lived experiences of volunteers, and we believe they should be compensated for their work with us. Agencies should establish a regular meeting schedule and co-create team norms that outline those processes for collective decision making. Take the time to listen. If there's a squeaky wheel, there's a reason for it. It's important to track your decisions, discussions, progress, and performance. Familiarize yourself with embedding shared power and relational partnerships within your teams. If anything regarding relational partnerships or shared power or the PAIR program as a whole is unclear, please reach out to us through your consultant for further information. We'd love to hear from you. Next, I'm going to talk about equity impact assessments, or EIAs. Some of you may know the Measure Baseline Report or your Equity Impact Report. I want to point out that the component in the future may change. We are looking at it, but for this year and this reporting period, we're going to use what you already have, and that EIA is a tool for your pair teams to self-reflect with. If you've done your EIA in the past, you might want to do it again because it's been a while. If you've seen major changes with your team, you should also have that conversation with them. It is that reflection piece in a way that can be consistent across agencies. From the equity impact assessment, we're going to talk about strategic action plans. So before you start setting your plan, you need to make sure you understand your baseline and how you have a complete team. And those are what we're really focusing on for the last reporting cycle. And then we're going to build on top of that to create effective and consistent strategic action plans that create opportunities, remove barriers, and address disparities. So for 2025, for what is due by March, we want to hear about your bright spots. I want to brag about you all day long. Let us know as much information as you can that reflects what your agency is doing. We acknowledge that people are coming from different places and have different amounts of capacity to build up at this point. So just send what you have, engage with us, and we'll meet you where you are. The things you really just need to know now is that we are focusing on the results. You need to make sure you bring the community in. And we are looking to do a tiered and built up approach as we have our workshops. Showing you the timeline, this whole session originally was at the 2024 convening in October, and this is the re-record. We're now in Q1 2025. But effectively, you should be submitting your report for that last 18 months, and that is what we're working on now. You don't need to worry about us sending you back a corrective action plan or an equity digest. We want to work together with you. As we go on throughout the next couple of years, we will start having more requirements, and we'll have a conversation about that. Our goal is to co-create solutions and support a better Washington for all. The work beyond 2025 will focus on providing resources and fostering relationships based on collective decision making. We are hoping to provide additional data on how community conditions are evolving through the Equity Hub. We have our consultation series. We'll have further resources available on our website, and you can always reach out to us through your consultants. There is even more to come. As we move forward, please know that we're developing our initiatives collaboratively as we find out what you need. Thank you for your attention during this presentation. I appreciate your participation, and I hope you feel informed and empowered to contribute in Washington's future. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at performance@equity.wa.gov. This is Ayla J, and I'm wishing you a great rest of your day.